Okay, Meg, we were just saying about the turnaround from nationals to worlds. Yeah, it's not, if you were going to continue the momentum peaking into nationals straight into worlds, that's a long, long haul. How was your peaking into nationals?
My peaking into nationals was great. Like my training blocks leading into nationals was some of the best training blocks that I've had. So that was pretty cool. And I feel like then turning around and going into world is kind of like, oh, we figured out what works. So like let's just roll with it. So I feel pretty good about the turnaround in general this year.
You're okay. So you've made you got some good posts where you're like introspective on things and there's a lot to uncover, but from where you are now in your mid 30s to when you first came in the game in your late 20s
Mm.
and your initial goals you set and how you saw yourself in the game and how you approached it. You had a great post on that I'd like to dive into, but also even previous to that, you were talking about when you first came in the game, and a lot of it was due to the mentality you originally had, cutting to 57 because you thought I'm going to be in and out. And
Yeah.
we could dive into that because it was fascinating. I remember you as a 57. We talked about it actually when I saw you get a PA Nats, and you're like, "Do you remember how freaking like you were shredded?" But it was like crazy. It was like
Yes.
getting ready to step on stage crazy. And I remember that picture we took together. I remember that day, and you're like, "How shredded am I right now?" And I'm like, but it was crazy. It was, it
Yeah.
was, it was nuts. So we could back this up a little bit for people who don't know, but you came in the game with goals in mind, and you were like, at all costs, you're going to meet these goals.
Yeah. And I mean, why I thought I would be able to do that, I have no idea, but it's kind of, I started powerlifting. I think I was like 28 maybe when I started powerlifting and did a local meet. And I was like, I might be pretty good at this, like, and continued along, ended up at nationals, my first nationals. I competed at 63, but like, I think I weighed in at 60, like a small 63, came in fifth. And some reason from that sparked, you know what? I can come back to nationals. I can cut down to 57. I can win and go to worlds. And I want to do that like before having kids. So it became like, all right, like how can I get this done in like 1 to 2 years type of deal. But I don't know like what gave me the confidence from coming in fifth at nationals to creating this idea of if I want to accomplish my goals or here's a way I can accomplish my goals faster. Right. Because, like, yes, I could have stayed 63, grown into the weight class, clearly got stronger as a 63, but it would have taken more time. And that was something that at that point, I didn't think that I necessarily had a lot of. So I wanted to get it done in the quickest way possible, which was cutting to 57. And like you were saying, after a year of cutting to 57, I was more than filling out the weight class.
Yeah. I mean, well, first off, when you came into powerlifting, finding it at 28, people would think is like late in the game. I I think though,
Yeah.
as time passes and powerlifting gets bigger and bigger and the reach gets bigger and bigger, people are finding powerlifting at younger ages as opposed
Mhm.
to back in the day, powerlifting's reach wasn't as big. So for you to find our sport might take later on in life. That's actually I think the starting age of people is getting younger and younger and younger due to that. Like we're on Eurosport, CBS, whatever. People are just gonna find it just by flipping on the TV these days. They'll be like, oh my gosh. Like, how did you
Yeah.
find powerlifting at 28?
Right. And especially social media. Social media was a thing back then, but not like it is now. And powerlifting did
No.
not have the reach through social media that it has now. So I feel like finding powerlifting now at a younger age isn't that surprising just because there's powerlifting teams in high schools and colleges and of social media, like there's I used to work at a gym. This is a side note, but I used to work at a gym, and I ran a team of personal trainers. And one of the personal trainers came up to me one day he was like, I started following you on Instagram. And I was like, oh, cool. And he was like, I see you also follow Russ Swole. And I was like, oh my God. He doesn't power lift though. He just knew him through social media. And because he had a huge social media following, and he liked, what he was doing basically. And that's why he was following him. And then he found out about powerlifting through that. Wasn't a
Wow.
powerlifter himself. But I think like because of that and the influence that certain people have had on social media, like younger and younger kids are finding powerlifting and like that's cool. But I found it through like A back door.
How did
Literally.
you find it?
In my mid-20s, I basically quit my job and went all in on becoming like starting my own business and running like group essentially like group training for adults, like strength and conditioning, kind of like athletic training for adults. And I rented space out of a gym. And it was like a warehouse gym. And in this warehouse gym, some people powerlifted and did strongman. And that was kind of my first exposure to any strength sport like that. Um, and that's how I started. I was like,
So you,
you know,
whoa.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, I've always lifted, like because of sports, like with
Mm.
a barbell, but never for a 1 rep max. I've never lifted to see how strong I could be. I've only lifted to help me in sports. So I had a huge base of training, but yeah, I didn't start until my later 20s.
And you were running marathons, doing Olympic weightlifting, like just doing tons of athletic endeavors.
Yeah, also true.
And didn't you, am I making this up? This is like way back in the day when you first came on the podcast, like, because you've been around for a hot minute now.
No, it's getting
Um,
long now.
it's been a long time now. You were a grizzled veteran. Did you not try out for like a reality TV show? Or am I making that
No,
up?
I didn't. Yeah, no, you're making that up. But I wish I did.
It
I know
was,
exactly what you're talking about. And I heard you talk about this on a podcast. I was like, I didn't do
it's so
that, but
much
I
fun
wish
stuff.
I
It's like
did.
I made up your background story, and now it's like
Yeah.
embedded in my mind. Megan was on a reality
I
TV
I
show.
should have. Yes. It was the one with
Right.
the rock. It was the one with the rock. I
That's
forget.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what it was
And you,
called, but yeah.
yeah. Titan or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right.
Something like
You're right.
that. But yes, when you found powerlifting, here's another thing I want to talk to you about and ask you why you think this is. So, for some reason, on the women's side, it seems far more international, at least in terms of like parity with elite level lifters. Whereas on the men's
Mhm.
side, everyone's talking about going to the world championships. Can they sweep? The men, no nation has ever swept where one nation wins every single weight class. That
Yeah.
might happen on the men's side.
Sure.
A lot of pressure, and that kind of talk is like Matt Gary doesn't like that kind of talk. He's the head coach. He's like, everyone's got to relax, man. This is tons of pressure. But on the women's side, it seems far more parity between the weight classes. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
I,
Uh,
here's I wonder if there's something to do with like obviously on the women's side of powerlifting, it has exploded in terms of participation. Um, and I wonder if the participation rate going up is at the same time, like participation rate on the women's is the same time as the expansion of the sport. So kind of grew in unison is more leveled out. I'm not sure. It, there's got to be something, but
right.
it is far more parity, which is probably better for the sport health wise that not one single nation is the number one.
Right. Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
not
That's a
sure.
great question, but I'm not sure,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, you look at like in previously, here's another thing. So previously, and you might remember these times, I think more Western, like in the North America, far more women were weightlifting under the barbell,
Hmm.
etc. In other places in the world, they had fewer women weightlifting and like squatting or whatever have you, like bench pressing,
Hmm.
etc. But it's crazy how quickly the rest of the world caught up
Hmm.
in the last couple
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. It's true. That's true.
Again, I'm not entirely sure how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
It,
I'm not sure.
it's the wildest. Especially like I don't know. I think maybe a couple stars broke out here and there, but it's not even one nation. Previously, it was like France, but we got Italy now.
Yeah, I
I mean, I
know.
don't got to tell you, the 63 kilo class, there seems to always be an Italian or a French lady that you're gonna have to bow.
Hmm. Yep. I know. I know. It's true. I don't know. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
cool, but I don't know.
What do you
You
think the
know.
chances are for the women's national team in terms of like taking first place? Because sweeping will be extremely difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think pretty high. I think we have a very strong team this year. And we really don't have any like holes. So I think that we have a pretty, I think it's our best chance. I mean, and I know the last couple of years we have won, but like I think we have the best chance of that we've had in a while. if that makes
Mhm.
sense, going in, right? Like projecting going in. Um, so yeah, it's exciting,
It's a
you
meat
know?
grinder to get onto Team USA. You had to
Hmm.
go through Celine the Machine,
Hmm.
and she is extremely top end level. How was your going into US Nationals? How were you approaching this? Was it because you are a veteran of the game? Is it like
Yeah,
another
yeah,
day in the office? Do you feel the pressure? And we'll get into also your post about your perspective. Like, I think I'm going to be here. Like, I'm going to be here for a while. I don't need to
sure.
have this scarcity mentality.
Right.
Even though like you're 35, and some people I've had on the podcast around that age are like, I don't know if this is going to be my last go around. And you have legends of the game like Taylor Atwood who are like,
Hmm.
man, I'm in my mid 30s.
I
Can I
know.
get back?
Right. And I do think there's something to be said for training age too. Like I know Taylor's been in powerlifting for, I think, a fair amount longer than I have, which that definitely does play a role too, especially when you're at top end for so long. And I also had a break during my period. So it's like, I think there's a
Mm.
lot of different factors that play into it, both mentally and physically, in terms of staying at a high level for a long period of time. Yes, of course, your actual biological age is a piece of it. But I mean, how long have I been training and competing at the top end? Technically, I've been powerlifting, I think, for 7 years, but you probably removed two of them and they were broken
Ugh.
up, you know? So it's like, it's kind of weird. It's almost like I had a little like refresher in the middle, which for me was kind of was game changing. I don't think I would still be here if I didn't have that. So I think it just, there's so many factors that go into the longevity or your longevity in the sport, especially when you're competing at an elite level. Um, but this year going to nationals, I think was a bit different for me because I did have competition like at nationals for the first time in a long time. But it was also the first time that I wasn't the chaser. Like I was being chased for the first time in, I
Mm.
think, my whole entire powerlifting career, which is a
Really?
different spot to be in. Um, and for me, I mean, I didn't hate it. Like I was like, okay, if I do my job in training, which I know how to do, and I'm responsible for myself, and I show up and I do my job, I'm going to be okay. Unless, like there's a miracle that happens, which can happen. We've seen it happen. I've experienced it before. It can happen. But like if I show up and do my job, like it's on me basically, to mess up. And I'd way rather be in that position where like before, a lot of times I had to throw things on the bar in hopes that I could put together a total high enough to beat somebody and or that they make a mistake, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And some people prefer to be the underdog because it takes pressure off. But
Mm-hmm.
and some people prefer to be the favorite where your confidence gets even more deeply rooted. It is, I don't, some people actually don't like to admit they're the favorite going into a competition due to the pressure. They got to be like, hey,
Sure.
look, no, no, it's everyone's game. It's like, no, a lot of people are picking you, Meg. And some people be
Yeah.
like, no, you never know. Let's just see what happens because they don't want that. It's
Oh yeah,
difficult.
yeah, sure. Yeah, but like it's an objective sport, right? So like you
Mm.
can analyze it all you want, but going in before anything happened, objectively, like I was the favorite, right? And of course there's going to be people that are voting against you. That's natural in human nature, but that's okay. Like it's my responsibility to prove them wrong. And like I'm okay with that responsibility because like I believe in my abilities at this point. And if I, you know what, if I screw up, if I fuck it up, it's on me. It's not
Right.
on anybody else. So, uh, yeah, it was definitely different, mentally going into nationals than any other meet, I feel like, in a long time.
What's interesting after the battle was over with Slane, and it's good that you had a good battle getting onto the US team. It's good that someone
Yeah.
shows
Oh,
up
for
and it's like,
sure.
okay, we got to unload. There's a blessing and a curse when it comes to Team USA. The curse is we have so many world-class lifters in the US that number two, number three
Mm-hmm.
could be competitive at the world championships if you could just send all these people. So they get
100%.
stopped, bottlenecked at US nationals.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. That's the curse. The blessing, you make a team USA, you make a US national team. And this is funny we're bringing this up because I was floating back into like previous posts. I'm doing some throwback stuff materials. And I found the old Team USA 2019 post that USAPL made. It showed all of their team as superheroes, like the Avengers. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember
that's
that.
funny. I don't even remember this. Yeah,
It
that's really
it is
funny.
crazy, and everyone looks like
Yeah,
superheroes and everything. And I remember in 2019 being at the World Championships, seeing that post made, and this is like Marvel comic style post, and looking at it and be like, man, that's fire. And
yeah.
showing other people, some Europeans, and they're like, that is so American to do. And they didn't like it. They didn't like it. However, the teams were stacked. It is
Sure,
what
sure.
it is.
Yeah, yeah,
You guys
yeah.
really do have dream teams every year. So
Hmm.
while the con is when you're coming up through the US, to get onto a team, it's a crazy big ask. Like
Hmm.
Celine is a fantastic lifter. She has to get through you. You're a multiple time. You won worlds, broken world records. She has to get through you, which
Right.
is super big. Where if she
I
was in a different
mean,
nation,
100%. Push comes to shove, she is essentially the like just based on numbers, the second best 63 right now, competing at 63 in the world. But because, you know, how strong the US is, like because of essentially like the team is so strong that there's no what do you call it? It's like no double weight classes. I don't know
yeah,
what to call that, but
yeah, we can't double up in
you
all
know
the
what I
weight
mean?
classes.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't double up in weight classes, etc. She doesn't get to go to Worlds, right? Um, so it's hard. Like that's a hard thing. That's an extremely hard thing because you're still one of the strongest in the world, no matter how you break it. Um, but it's funny because I feel like in a lot of ways I see like I feel like I relate to where she's been. You know what I mean? Like previously, obviously, I think I'm like 10 years older than Celine, give or take. Um,
give or
and it's
take.
just
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like it's a matter of time. You know what I mean? It's a matter of time. But yeah, that's a tough thing.
it's so I'll relate back to Celine in one sec. But in terms of the US and the bottleneck of talent that has to happen to make a US national team.
Hmm.
So that's the curse. But the gift is when you make a US national
Right.
team,
I was just thinking
you
that.
sh-
Yeah.
you
You're
show
ready.
up.
Yeah.
You're not you're yes, you are battle tested
Yeah.
just to make a team. You've been through battles. No one's like, have
100%.
you been tested? You've been tested.
Right.
And the hype on the US national team, you are like the Avengers. It is that kind of quality. You show up, even if someone doesn't know you from previous years, they see USA across your chest and they're like, that person's going to be immediately, they take you as a contender. They don't need to look at
Hmm.
your open powerlifting. They don't need to look at, who's coaching this person, whatever. They're like,
Yeah.
that person is a contender for the podium. Watch out.
Right.
Megan
Yeah.
Hurlburt is going to be her first worlds. It's in people might not have been following her before. She doesn't have a massive social media following. But when Megan shows up,
Hmm.
everybody's going to see she's the American champion. Guarantee
Hmm.
you she's a podium favorite, and she is. And
Yeah.
they're right. And they're
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So
And I
there's a
mean,
gift and a curse.
right. Yeah. 100%. But I think that the fact that you have, in order to get to Worlds, you have likely had some wins and losses, like some rough wins
Mm.
and losses. You've had experience with competition head to head. So by the time you get to Worlds, yes, there's a factor of you are on the world stage for your first time, but you can lean back on all the experience that you have had that if you take away like how special it is to compete at Worlds and the fact that you're at Worlds, you have a lot to lean back on and like
Mm.
give you confidence going into Worlds and make you feel like that superhero even though you haven't been there before.
For sure, confidence without experience to a large extent is just naivety in ignorance is
Hmm.
bliss type scenario. When people walk in there, like when they haven't experienced anything and earned that confidence, so to speak, it's kind of comes off more like, well, that's cute. But we're not really that. No one else, you know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
someone's
Sure.
trying to be
Sure.
fake cocky,
Sure.
we all meet these
Yes.
people in life where they're
Yeah.
like,
You're like,
and it's like, but you haven't achieved anything yet, so it's more cute. I'm not overly impressed. You're coming off cocky, and I like you got a
yeah.
persona for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but people are looking at you like, oh, okay. But when you have actually achieved a bunch, been battle tested, so to speak, and then you walk in confident,
Hmm.
it hits a little different.
Hmm.
It's a little bit different when someone's like, "We're okay, we got this," etc. And you look at their resume, They don't got to tell you they're okay and they got this. You just tell yourself
Hmm.
they're probably okay. They've been through all the different scenarios already.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just a different
something I was
platform, right?
right. And something I was telling Celine. So when Celine went through this, and you kind of alluded to it earlier with there's an age gap, and she's training years and competitive years younger in the game. Although she's been doing it for a while, but
Yeah.
it's a long haul. It kind of goes back to your post you had made. So she was pretty distraught. She has a dream of going to the world championships. She has
Hmm.
a dream of just like most athletes. You picture yourself at the top, etc. And she was pretty distraught because she cares. And then
Hmm.
I remember telling her, look at Meg. She's 35 years old, and you even put it in that post. When I first came in the game, I had this. I got to get it early. I got to get there to Worlds. You did, but not looking at the bigger picture now at 35, you're like, man, I have so many more years. And
Right.
it's the same thing with Celine, where it's like, Celine, don't worry, relax a
Yeah.
little bit. You're
Yeah.
going to be around a lot longer than you think you are. It just keeps going on and
Hmm.
on.
100%. And it's just a fact of, do you want to be, right? So like someone asked me that question, like, how long do you think you're going to keep progressing? And my answer is kind of like, as long as I want to. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, like I can do this forever and just keep progressing. But for me at this point in time, for me to keep progressing, like it takes a lot. Like it's not just going to the gym. It's all of the other factors outside of the gym that help me progress as well. So it's like, how long do I want to do all of the things to make me progress? I could still, like, and by that I mean like, yeah, I don't think I've missed a training day. And like since I started training again after my girls were born. So what? Like say they're a little over 3. So say like 3 years. I honest to God don't think I've missed a training day or even like really shifted my training around that much. And like, yes, I'm like trying to get 8 hours of sleep all the time. And yeah, I'm pretty like on top of like eating well and not going out and drinking all the time and things like that because I have to be at this point if I want to continue to progress. I'm not saying I'm going to always want to do that. Like that might change. And I think if that changed, it's either going to stall my progression or I'm not going to progress anymore, or I'll still be strong, but I might have lower totals. And that's okay too. But it's just like, what am I going to want to do in 3 years from now? I don't know. We'll see what
Mm.
happens. I mean, at this point in time, since I feel like before I didn't think I'd come back to powerlifting, it's like, just see what happens, like let it unroll. I feel like I'm on like my joyride of powerlifting the past like 2.5 years. So it's like, let's see what happens. So let's see, how long we take it and then go from there.
What a time to be having your joyride, the second wind with like Sheffield, World Games, CBS has picked it up, Eurosport. Like this is a fantastic time to have your second win to be like, oh my gosh, like this World Championships is pivotal,
Yeah.
pivotal because it's your ticket to
Yeah.
Sheffield. It's your ticket to
Right.
World Games. It's so
Right.
many more experiences where you could just check off the boxes and be like, wow, I'm going to experience a lot in this sport that you never would have even dreamed of in 2019 when you went to Worlds. They weren't even on
No.
the table. We didn't have
Right.
Sheffield or World Games. And now you're like, holy smokes, this World Championship is the most pivotal.
Right.
Do,
It's a big
do
one.
you? Yeah, it is a big one, and you're going in this. You're the favorite once again.
Mhm.
Like, how do you feel about going into this World Championships? This is your fourth, right?
Yeah, my fourth.
It's crazy,
It's crazy.
especially coming through the U.S. again. I mean, there are
It's
other people who've
crazy.
done several, but they've gone through nations where the opposition isn't there at the national level. You have been in nothing but dogfights.
Mhm. Yeah,
Really, really
it's pretty
good.
cool. Like it's cool. I mean, I love going to worlds, like I feel like every worlds I've been to, I've had such a different experience for different reasons. Um, but they've all been some of my favorite meets and favorite experiences and meets that I've learned the most from. Without a doubt. So I don't know. I'm like, all right, number 4, like, here we go. Let's have a good day and see what we can do.
Wow.
To be honest, I also feel like I know I mentioned, like, I had really good training going into nationals. My I mean, I've only been training for 3 weeks since nationals, not that long, but like starting to build momentum again and be like, oh shit, like I'm strong, and kind of wanting to see the fruition of that, because at nationals I didn't really get to, just because of being sick. So like kind of being like, all right, like I want to see what I'm doing in training on the platform type of deal, you know?
So despite the fact that you're a mother, mid 30s, 2022, you did 505 at Worlds.
Yeah.
2024, you did 543. That's almost a 40-kilo jump in total.
Yeah.
I mean, your strength is, and we're
Yeah.
not even a full year, 2 years away. Like,
Right.
wait, who the
Yeah.
frick knows if you get into the 550s, you get into the
Yeah.
550s at the World Championship, what are
Sure.
we talking about? A 50-kilo jump in your
Right.
mid 30s. It's fantastic improvement. And
Yeah.
also, whether Gara was there or not, or
Sure.
whoever's there, you're competitive. This is
Hmm.
like you were ascending now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a phenomenal second
Just a
wind here.
late bloomer, a late
It's
bloomer, you know?
how is this possible? What's going on? What did you change?
Um, I mean, a few things. I'm just powerlifting. So that's a huge thing. Like, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not doing Oli. I'm not running and
Mm,
trying to powerlift at the same time. So that's huge. Just in terms of even like fatigue levels. But the other huge thing is, which also probably plays into this, is relatively speaking, like I haven't had to take huge breaks for injuries, which I was doing kind of a lot. Like injuries were affecting a lot of my training before, um, which makes a huge difference in the sport
mm.
and your progression in the sport. Everyone's going to get injured in terms of like, yeah, you're going to be in pain sometimes. You're going to have to adjust your training, but not having huge gaps makes a huge difference. Of both your enjoyment of the sport, but also your progression and how much weight you can load on the bar. Um, and I think that there's two pieces of that. I think going to 63 was a huge piece of me being healthy. And also, I started working with Kelly when I came back and started lifting, my coach now. And I think that those two things combined have led me to be just way healthier overall. So therefore, I am making these huge progressions in my mid 30s. I think when I started 2 years ago, like lifting again, I just wanted to break 500. Like that was a lifetime goal for me.
And
Like
you're
I
well
hadn't,
beyond that.
yeah, now I was like, oh shit, I set the bar too low for myself.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like shit, like how much can I total? Uh we're gonna find out.
right.
So it's just like it's a cool thing. And I think that also I just have a better like awareness of myself, like who I am, and it just leads to me being more confident under the barbell and like not questioning myself as much as I did before.
Did you do any like changes in terms of lifting fewer days of the week, rolling back volume, upping intensity? Like, was there any kind of changes like that approaching your mid 30s to see this kind of massive jumps?
Progression. It's hard to compare them only because like before those 2 years before I was doing super total training. So I was weightlifting and powerlifting literally combined year round all the time.
Mm,
Whereas now I'm only doing powerlifting training. So my overall volume's less, but my powerlifting volume's more.
yeah, so it's hard to tell.
Like it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
And also, so when you were in 2019 and you were
Yeah.
doing that big cut and you were as shredded as you were, you made a post
Hmm.
talking about the sacrifice you made to get down to 57.
Oh yeah.
How and
It's
I remember it. I remember seeing you and not trying to. You don't want to rattle the person. I remember thinking, "Holy smokes, Meg looks like
terrible.
oh, yeah." Well, I
Yeah.
would say terrible, but
You
you
could say
you could.
terrible. It looks like death.
But you could tell you were like, "Holy shit!" Like you see
Yeah.
someone after they make you were confident as hell and had a fantastic day. Still, you missed your
Yeah.
opening squat, but
Yeah.
finished with a
Sure.
world record total. At that point, when you hit your last deadlift, you were literally the best 57 we had ever seen in history. And then Maria T did a Hail Mary and still ended up the second greatest 57 we ever seen in history. So you had a phenomenal day. So,
Hmm.
A, what did it take to get down to that? And how
Hmm.
difficult was it? Because you talked about it in your post. And then let's talk about the decision to go 63, despite being so good at 57. But how tough was that?
Gonna bring me back. Okay.
Let's go back a minute.
Uh, all right. So when I first got to 57, it wasn't that hard. I was, I started powerlifting. I was still running. So like I had a lot less muscle mass. I was lean. I was super lean, but it wasn't as hard. But after I think it was like a year at 57 where I was just powerlifting and weightlifting, I gained a lot of muscle. And to already be big in the weight class and then also gain muscle made it much, much, much harder to get down to 57. So at Worlds, and I was burnt out too. So like the combination of being burnt out mentally from cutting and being too big for the weight class led me to cut I don't know, like 8 pounds of water.
At that body weight, that's a big percentage.
Yeah, it was way too much. Yeah. So I cut like from 61 to 57 probably of water, which
Oh,
when I tell you how I felt so terrible.
that's closer to, that's more than eight. Because of 2.2, that's like you're getting
Yeah.
closer maybe to 10 or that. You must have felt terrible.
I felt really terrible. I mean, hours and hours in the sauna and in the hot bath. But I also, and this is no different. Like, if I was going to do this now, no different. Like, I was like, I came here to compete as a 57. This is terrible. But like, I was like, I'm making weight. Like, there's no way I'm showing up and
Oh,
not
yeah.
making weight. And I think Brian, who's my husband, he was there at the time. And he's like, this was the only time I was ever honest to God nervous and maybe was ready to ask you, like, hey, do you think you should stop? And I was,
Really?
yeah, yeah. But obviously I made it like before we had to go over.
Like, how bad is it? People don't understand. I've cut weight, but for some people who like not, I don't think a monster cut like this. But for people who don't understand what it feels like, it gets scary because it actually is
Yeah.
dangerous. This is not
Yeah, it actually is.
it.
It's not recommended. Oh,
No,
not recommended. And also
yeah.
none of my other cuts were like this either. Like just like this was not like a thing I was doing over and over again. This was like I was a little mentally burnt out. I was not on top of my diet before. I was too muscular for the weight class. It got away from me, but I was like, I'm competing at Worlds.
Yeah,
And this
because
was
you
the
don't
way to make
compete
it
if you don't make
happen.
it.
Exactly. So this was like, I'm gonna make it happen no matter what it takes. Which again, like totally not recommended, not safe at all, especially for a 2 hour weigh-in.
So what during it, you were water cutting, sauna, and bath,
Yeah. Hmm.
or for just like hours on end.
Yes, pretty much.
Was it the night before and the day of that you were doing it?
Yeah, my weigh-ins were early. I think they were at 7. So I started like the afternoon before, hoping like I could get most of the weight off. And then it ended up literally almost being all night.
Oh my God.
It
So you
was
didn't sleep.
so bad. No, I
And
really didn't sleep. I really didn't sleep. Definitely didn't eat.
oh my God,
Uh,
it's the
yeah,
worst.
the worst.
And when you weighed in and you made weight, where was your head at in terms of were you telling yourself, okay, I made weight, but I am on death's door? Like, how were you? You broke world
No,
records. You did a
clearly
phenomenal
not, because
job.
I let them load my regular opener onto the bar. So clearly not, right? Which like was a huge lesson I learned of just being realistic for what the day presents, whether it's a water cut or whether you're sick or whether you're a little injured. Just because it's meet day doesn't mean you can throw your top numbers on the bar,
Mm.
unfortunately. And like sometimes you have to adjust for what unfolds on that day. And that's something I didn't do then. Just because I was green, like I didn't know any better. And again, I was like, I made weight and mentally, when I was cutting weight, that was the first part. So I was like, all right, first part is I make weight. That's over. Then the second part is it's time to compete. So like once I weighed in and made weight, like that door shut. I'm not thinking about it anymore. Now I'm just going forward. So almost like compartmentalizing it. And it worked for me very well, but also almost to a detriment where like I should have been like, hey, I feel absolutely terrible. I think we should probably lower my opener. Um, because I know you mentioned that I missed my opener. It was not, it was a strength issue. It wasn't,
How scary is
I mean,
that?
yeah, like it's pretty scary. I got blue lights, which I'm not sure exactly why, but it looked terrible. I, honest to God, to this day, I'm like, I think they looked at it and was like, holy shit, what is this girl doing? Just no, no, that's terrible.
How nerve-wracked were you after that happened?
I was scared shitless. I mean, it was like one of couple of the worst moments of my lifting career. Because again, same thing, like this was my goal to get to Worlds, to compete at Worlds. I had a chance to win. Um, and I got here and I literally missed my first squat on strength. So
Yeah.
at that point in time, I was like, this is an issue. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna bomb out of Worlds. So like, was this all for nothing? Because in my mind at the time, it would have been all for nothing. Like my identity was I'm a power lifter and I'm gonna go to Worlds and I'm gonna try to win. So it would have probably been a terrible spiral if I bombed out of Worlds. Um, but I kind of like stepped aside and like let myself go through that and then said, but what if I make my next squat? Right? Like you only need one.
Mm.
It's not ideal, but you only need one to keep going. So I was like, I can get one. That's all I need. Like just get one and keep going.
Your ability to compartmentalize,
Hmm.
like you just said with the actual weight cut, and then leave it. Doesn't matter. It's
Hmm.
done now. And then go on to
Hmm.
squats. And
Yeah.
you even compartmentalized each individual squat. Missed your
Yeah.
opener at Worlds. Feel like garbage. You can't lower it now. You're
Right.
you're stuck. And your
Yeah.
ability to be like, I just need one. Get it out. Move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
huge asset for you. That is
Huge.
huge in life in
Yeah.
general.
It is. Yeah. 100%. I mean, you know, those lifters that you see and they miss a lift and you almost see the lights shut off.
Mm.
Right? It's a skill to be, you're going to miss a lift at some point in time. It's a skill to just let it happen and keep going, like shake it off. Yeah, gotta pretend it didn't happen, right? Like it can't affect your next however many lifts are on the board. Like every lift, you just have to start fresh. Even when you're in a meet, even if you go 9 for 9, you know, you take your opener, you might be like, that moved great. You take your second, you're like, but you could take your third and it feels better, right? But if you
Mm.
let the second attempt affect your mindset going into the third, it's likely you're not going to attack it as much. You're going to be a little bit apprehensive. You're going to be questioning the weight on the bar when you can't be. You have to walk out there confident, almost to a ridiculous point, to get under the bar when the loads are either at your top end or something over your top end, and be confident that it should be on the bar because you are strong enough and you're going to lift it. And you need to have that mindset every single time, or else you're setting yourself up for failure.
People, it's true. People almost, some people overplay mindset, some people downplay it. But
Yeah.
I think almost all of us have been in a situation, whether it's in the gym or the platform, you missed a weight, and the
Hmm.
obviously the same weight, you didn't get stronger because there's like
Right.
2 minutes, 5 minutes later, whatever, and you come back and you hit it. And
Yeah.
was there major technical changes? Even without technical changes, everything was the
Hmm.
same, but you got far more rallied up, far more intense, far more, and you hit it, and
Right.
it happens. There is something there to be said for that.
100%. 100%. If you get caught too much in what you've missed in the past, it's, you know, you're living in the past. Like you're not who you were a year ago. I mean, I was failing 180 kilo squats like uh 2 years ago. Now I'm like, it's a weight I could hit any day, load it up, right? But if I got caught thinking about, and I remember specifically failing a squat in the gym that was 180 kilos that I thought I should be able to lift because I've done it before. And it was supposed to be like RP7 and I failed. um,
Mm.
but if I get caught thinking about that, right, it's not going to set me up for success when I try to load 190 on the barbell or 195 on the barbell. Um, so just letting it be and like leaving it and learning from it is so important because you got to be able to kind of keep going, you know, like you can't let it affect you going forward.
How soon after that Worlds in 2019 did you move to 63?
Um, right after. But I also got hurt like pretty soon after. I hurt my back pretty bad. And I did go to nationals. I was at 63 that year. And then I went to the Arnold, and then that was when everything shut down. So it wasn't really that long.
And when you had ended up having your kids,
Mm.
was this during the process, were you telling yourself, I'm scrapping what I thought earlier about possibly not coming back after kids? Because initially you were saying in that post, you were kind of like on the timeline, look, I need to do this before I start a family. At
Yeah.
what point did you turn that corner mentally and be like, you know what? I
Yeah.
don't got to scrap all my goals and
Sure.
dreams because I'm a mother.
Yeah. Mhm. I mean, after they were born, I started lifting because I needed something I knew how to do, like knew exactly what I was doing because I felt like I have no freaking clue what I'm doing as a mom. So let's lift. Feel
I
very
don't think
confident in
parents
the
ever
gym.
do. Most parents are like, you never figure
Yeah.
it out. So don't worry about it. You
No,
just do your best.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was COVID. So it was like terrible time. Um, that was the other piece. I was like, I can't even go anywhere. So I was like, I have a garage gym that I literally finished making right as everything shut down. So I was like, might as well use it. And I competed at nationals, USAPL nationals in 2021, but I wasn't convinced, like I wanted to go, but I wasn't convinced that I was going to compete like at an elite level again. Really, honestly, until I went to Worlds again in 2022, right? 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you got back. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so I mean, the thing with not only do you need something that's yours for sure, but you're one of the best in the world at it. The world's a big place. You're one of the best in the world at it. Like the
Yeah.
specialness of that. Like this is
Yeah.
not only just something you could do for you,
Sure. Yeah,
but
it's
to look
crazy.
back and like, did you
Yeah.
stop doing it? Like,
I know. It's crazy. I think it's crazy because although I know that, right? Like it's like not something I think about. Like, oh, I'm the best, you know? But it's really
it's
truly
true.
something I know. No, I know it's true. I totally get it. But it's really truly something I enjoy doing, which I also think is the part that like makes me dangerous in a way. And I think it's another part of why I keep getting better because I really truly enjoy like the process and I enjoy doing it.
Mm.
Um, and it's a choice. Like at this point, I'm like, it's a choice. Where before I kind of felt like I enjoyed it, but it was like I felt like I had to as well, and to some degree. I don't know why, but I felt like I like had to, you know?
To like prove something or
Yeah, like prove something. And now I'm like, like I got nothing to prove except to myself. Like now, you know how I was saying, like, oh, I want to break 500. Like that's my lifetime goal. All right, cool. I broke 500. Now I'm like, all right, like these are my goals, X, Y, and Z. Like if I told them to some other people, they'd think I was absolutely freaking nuts. But like I could prove it to myself.
the fact that you're back at this point to this level after having kids. I remember when you first came back, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody, you came back pretty quick. You had said though, like the muscle mass isn't there yet. When you first
No.
started competing, you're like, I am not 100%. You
Oh
could
no.
tell. In
Yeah.
some
I was
people,
57 again.
oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I had no muscle for a while. It took 2 years for sure to get
Just
like
a lot of people
back.
think like in your 30s, you're not going to gain the muscle mass back. What's like that would be a fear. Like, well,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
going to come
yeah.
back now. It's
Sure.
just this is the new me. Did you
Nah.
ever think that? Did you ever think it's gone?
No,
This
no,
is the
no.
new
It was
me.
just time. Like your body doesn't forget, you know, it's just time if you want it to. But that's the thing. It's like realistically, like your life does change in such a huge, dramatic way when you become a parent on multiple different levels. And for everybody, it's going to be a little different. So, and I guess that's kind of what I mean when I like didn't know if I was going to lift at an elite level again, like knowing what I know. Was I going to put in the time and the efforts that I needed to, like you're saying, like gain all of my muscle mass back and like compete at an elite level? I don't know. I wasn't really convinced of that until I honestly went to nationals, got hurt, had like a crisis, identity crisis of I don't think I'm a power lifter anymore. Maybe I'll just find another sport. Met my coach Kelly, started working with her, competed in a meet and PR'd my total by 2.5 kilos, like nothing crazy, but enough to be like, huh,
Mm.
maybe I could get better. Like maybe I could run it back, as they say. You know what I mean? And slowly but surely, it took a while. This was like in December before Worlds in 2022. So slowly but surely, I started gaining more confidence, like in my body again, and in myself as an athlete. Like in a lot of ways, I felt like after I became a mom, I like became super soft. And like I
Soft?
have, yeah, soft. And like I have,
Mhm.
but like in good ways. I'm still like, I'm not soft at all, but like in good ways. But like as an athlete, I'm still the same person I was before. I'm still an absolute crazy person that is like coming for blood. You know what I mean? Like you can't change that part of you and whatever that means. And I realize I can't change that part of me. So we might as well go after it while we can, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. So initially you said your identity was wrapped up in being a powerlifter. Is it is it the same now? Is it changed? Or is it because you've achieved even more? Like if
Right.
anything else,
I
you've
know.
imprinted yourself in the game.
Right.
When people think of these eras, and I want to get into how much the eras changed from 2019 to
Oh
now
my
and how
God.
it's you and
It's
Amanda Lawrence
insane.
left. Now
It's
you realize
insane.
when you look to your left and right, all of those women that were on your national team are gone except for you and Amanda Lawrence.
I
Like,
know.
and it's still you.
Yeah.
People are going to remember you
Yeah.
now.
It's crazy. Honestly, what I think about too is not just the people that have changed, the totals are so different. And
Mm.
I am just lucky enough to find like my stride at the right point in time where I could hang as these totals started climbing and climbing and climbing. And in my head, as I started to hit 500 and see some momentum, I knew that at some point in time, I remember, I think at the time the world record, it was Leah's, and I think it was like 5:30 something. And I was like, I'm gonna get there. Like I can get to 5:30 something. Absolutely. Someday I will, you know? And that was kind of like I had my eye on it. And it happened, right? And then the world record goes up again. I'm like, all right, we're gonna keep clawing away. Like we're gonna get there. And it was 5:50. And I was like, I'm gonna get to 5:50. Like I'm gonna get there. And I haven't done it yet, but I will get there. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
it's like crazy that I've been able to hit my stride at the right time, physically, but also I think like mentally as an athlete too. Like I'm way more mature as an athlete. And I think that has also helped. Like I know I don't necessarily need to do it today, but I know that I can do it and I will eventually get to where I want to go. Um, and I think that's a huge difference between me in 2019 and me now. Huge
Like,
difference.
do you still view yourself? Is your persona wrapped around being a power lifter? It's kind of it's a
I
difficult
mean, of
thing because
course, right? Like, of course.
right,
But
yeah,
I guess in a way, like before it was like if I had a good day in a gym or a bad day in the gym, like it affected the rest of my day. It
okay.
affected my training. Now it's like, all right, it is what it is moving forward, right? Like I'm able to take a step back and realize how freaking cool it is to do what I'm doing and that it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a good day. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a better or worse person or a better or worse power lifter. You kind of just, have to be able to have that separation. Um, so
Is it weird to be the bridge of these two eras where, yeah, you're going to make a US national team and you don't recognize anyone else but Amanda on there from
yeah,
originally when you came to US national team? Like, is it weird to be like,
yeah,
oh my God, I'm an OG
it's
and
weird.
I'm a bridge to the yesteryear? Like a lot of, not some, a lot of people in powerlifting right now only know post-COVID Sheffield, Eurosport,
Yeah,
and all this big hyper. Whereas before, you were there before. You
yeah.
remember what it was before. Is that
Mm-hmm.
kind of weird to be like, man, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
It's
still
so
hanging
weird.
on.
It's so weird. Actually, Brian actually said to me the other day, he goes, I think you're like the oldest by 10 years on the team. And I'm like, that's rude. I was like, no way. Like, get
Yeah.
out. I'm not
Well, that's rude.
that old. Yeah. And then I'm looking, I'm like, okay, well, Meg's also in her 30s. But other than that, I don't think you're wrong. We might have some late 20s, but yeah, I guess you're right. Like I guess I'm now like that person that I used to look at and was like, man, I want to do what they are doing. I want to go to Worlds multiple times. Like I used to look up to Jen Thompson, right? Who's around forever. And
Right.
I was like, am I like similar to her now? And then Brian's like thinking about it, and she's like, and he was like, well, actually, I think she was in her 40s when you started. And then I go, so you're saying I have another good
Well,
5 or 6 years.
think, do you think about that? Do you think like, how long am I going to push this?
Right, exactly. But it is crazy because it is a huge it's a new faces. Um,
New era entirely. Like
yeah.
all the different opportunities and everything that you have now, you didn't have
Hmm.
before. Was it a little more for love of the game, or is it still that but now? Because previously, I don't even feel people were necessarily a social media famous. I remember in 2019, it was the first. That's when Russ first won the worlds, because he's in 2018, and I remember Russ being in the back, and he had a camera guy filming his
Hmm.
every movement, filming. And I remember that was unique. I
Yeah.
remember everyone else. I remember Caffley, who's my friend. He was on the Canadian team, 83s, and he's like, man, Russ is such a social media guy. He had a fucking film crew with him back there.
Sure.
And I remember being like, oh my God.
That was a
And
big deal then. Yeah.
that was like, what is he doing?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, he's such a
Ahead
so
of his time.
now,
Yes.
now you have
Yeah.
local meet people hiring videographers being like, follow me around everything.
You have people doing it in the gym.
Yeah.
Like
And they
he
got
was
teams
he was ahead of his time in that
for
regard.
sure.
By far. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole landscape has changed.
It's it's the wildest and seeing it all. So back then, I don't know. So some people tell me, was it more pure back then? And I'm not
I get
sure if
what you're
that's rose
saying.
colored. Like maybe if it's rose colored glasses, but it's still pure now.
Hmm.
It's true. You can make an argument. Some people are doing it for clout, for attention. There are things
Sure.
happening for that for sure.
Of course. Of course. And there's always going to be people that's the reason. Um, Personally, I think I do it more for the love game now, just because I'm like, meh, like again, like I'm making the decision to do this. I don't necessarily have to chase clout where I am in
Mm.
my life. Like I'm not in a position where I'm trying to make, like I don't even know how I would
We'll
phrase
put it this
this
way.
or go about it. I don't even know how to say that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to become a
Be cool at 30. Here's the thing.
yeah,
I
like
know what you
that's
mean
not me.
when you're a mother in your mid 30s, like, am I worried about being cool? But on the
No,
flip side,
I'm so uncool.
I don't know about that though. Here's the thing.
Uh,
What you've achieved, like even you said at 28, you were like, well, I mean, after you have kids, like it's probably a wrap,
yeah,
etc. And
sure.
you're changing what people think. You're
Yeah,
doing what you're doing, coming back after having twins. It's crazy.
yeah,
Just like the hormonal difference that happens in your body and the
yeah.
loss of like muscle mass you're seeing, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back and people can come back just like someone can make weight and have a shitty
Yeah,
day. Anyone can not anyone
100%.
can make weight and have a shitty day,
Yeah,
but do it and still achieve. Do it and win a world title. Do it
yeah,
and
yeah.
come back again to another world.
Right, right.
Do that and you're changing how people perceive things. And there are
Yeah,
for sure women all over the world who are asking themselves, does this mean the end for me if I have kids? Does this mean
mm-hmm.
the end for me at whatever age? Does this mean? And
Yeah,
they look to you like, no, it doesn't.
yeah. All right. So this is similar to how when you were saying like you're one of the best in the world. I was like, yeah, no, I understand that, but I don't necessarily think of that. Similar here. Like I understand that, but I don't necessarily think of it, especially not all the time. However, when I do, it is something I am so grateful for because I have had people like, different women come up to me either at local meets or even at Worlds. And I've had people reach out to me on social media and basically say like, thank you. You know what I mean? Like, because this was something I had hoped I could do either after having children or I'm thinking of having children, but I never really saw it happen in real time type of deal. And that's something I'm grateful for because that's something that I felt I didn't have. There were people that competed at high level that had children, like Jennifer Thompson, but her children were teenagers. So I was like, what does that look like when they're a newborn? Like what does that process look like? Is it possible to come back and to compete after having children? I don't know. And I didn't necessarily have an example to look up to. And that was kind of tough because that absolutely made me question myself and some of my choices during that period of time, especially like the first year. uh, because you get so many people telling you negative things, whether it's negative, like, you shouldn't be doing that because of your body and you're ruining your body. Or on the flip side, like, you shouldn't be doing that because you have young children and you're taking time away from them. So it's like attacking you from all different angles in a way where it's like, you got to let people live, man. And it's such a fragile time, like for new mothers during that first year, 2 years, especially when it's their first time being a mom. It's like you have to let people give them space. You know what I mean? Like give them space to figure it out and to figure out what's going to work for them. Because what I can tell you is once I figured it out for myself and once I kind of um, knew what I wanted and knew what made me function better, I was so much happier and so much confident. Yeah, under the barbell, but also as a mom. And I think without a doubt, like my children are happier because I'm happier and like they're having a better experience because I'm more confident in myself as a mom, right? So that's one thing I'm for sure grateful for. The ability to kind of have this experience and be able to share some of it with social media, right? That's cool.
Imagine? Can you imagine
I
your kids, like, okay, first off, people saying, you know, you're training, but you could be with your kids more.
right.
What are we talking about? You
Yeah,
can't have a life like
right,
that.
right,
Literally, you
right.
know that funny meme where it's like
Yes,
your kids get stronger every day. You know what they get stronger on? Your dreams. When they eat your dreams and whatever. But it's like you don't actually
yeah,
want. Who wants to like you just lose yourself and
right.
you have no identity. Anything that gives you joy in life. Here's another. Okay. I think 99% of people out there do have hobbies. They don't identify them as hobbies. So when you come home from work, Joe Blow
Mhm.
or Miss Joe Blow, and you just like drink, watch Netflix, do whatever the shit,
Right,
and waste all this time, like you have time you're wasting. Where other people, or how many freaking people we know have just whatever hobbies that aren't nearly going to be like obviously a world championship in powerlifting or something. But nobody is 100% their kids. Most people just
right.
don't have anything else though. There's a difference. I
Yeah.
know people who are like, I'm all about my kids. No, I know your daily schedule. For sure, you're about your kids, but you actually
Hmm.
don't have a hobby or passion. So when you look at someone like Meg and you're like, you should give it up, you want her to give it up because you don't have anything like that. But
Right.
it's not that you
Well, that's what
couldn't.
yeah, I was gonna kind of say like sometimes I feel like it's like a little bit of like the projection, right? Of
Yes.
perhaps what someone else is thinking like on you. And that's okay. It's just it's a hard thing, I think, for new mothers in that period of time to get so many opinions on what they're doing. And I'm not just
Mm.
saying me, like, I just mean in general. And that's one thing that I wish for all like women who have are powerlifting and say they want to have babies and whether they want to come back or not, whatever they think going into it, their mind may change, might change. But like just to know you're gonna get opinions that you didn't ask for. And it's gonna be at a time where like you're questioning everything, which makes it so difficult. But at the end of the day, you just have to trust your gut and roll with it. And know if it doesn't work, that's okay. And you can change things, like things are always gonna change. But just don't doubt yourself because others are doubting you.
It's the worst is where people try to make you feel guilty and it's your
Hmm.
kids they're doing it with. That's the
Hmm.
worst. Where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
great. I gotta go
Right.
sleep with this. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you gotta live your own life. In terms of your kids, look at your daughter's gonna grow up and be like, my mom is a world champion, potentially multiple time world champion, and
Yeah.
all the different things you're this is a pivotal worlds. You could be got Sheffield World Games, all the crazy experiences. You don't think your daughters are gonna grow up be like, do you wish your mom had achieved all this? And you get to look
Right.
back, watch this. They're gonna listen to these podcasts. They'll be, that's my fucking mom. You know,
Right.
your daughters are gonna grow up. If someone
Oh
tells them they
yeah.
can't do nothing, they'll be like, do you know who my mom is?
All right.
Do
They're
you
like,
know a
oh
bit
yeah.
like that? Instead of what they want, it's gonna be
Yeah.
a plus.
100%. I mean, one of them came home the other day. They go to like preschool a couple days a week and came home and goes, so Ma, I told Miss Lily today that my mom was number one. And I'm like, oh my God. These teachers have no idea. Like
They don't.
no, they don't know the context of this. They're probably thinking I'm like going to my going to my kids, you know, your mom is number one. I'm like, that's hilarious. But they get it now. Like they watch, like we've watched meets before. Like we watched Sheffield. I watched Sheffield with them. Like they get it. And they understand. Like when I went to nationals, like they watched and they understood, like I competed. They understood that I won. Um,
Really?
yeah,
How old are
like
they now?
they're 3. So they're like getting to the age where like they comprehend so much. And like,
It's so
you know,
crazy.
it's getting to a point where like, all right, like they're gonna come with me to a meet and like they're gonna remember it, and like
Yes.
that's freaking cool because they also understand it because they're around it so much, obviously, um, in the garage, but they like understand what's going on because of that, which is cool.
And not only that, all of this is just digital assets that's there forever.
Hmm.
Even look, you were on King of List podcast before they were born. This
Hmm.
is so crazy. If you actually think about if this was you, you could
Hmm.
listen to podcasts, etc., and watch video of your mom before you were born, your mom when you were pregnant, your mom having a comeback after pregnancy, and the
Yeah.
world is like, oh my God, can you believe Meg's mom's coming back? And it's you, your
Mm.
mom,
Yeah.
being born, and the world knows you were born, the world knows your mom's coming back,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the world, look, they're
It's
even when they're
crazy.
older, they could go back and
Yeah.
listen to, and watch all of this.
Yeah, it's crazy. Man, I've never gone back and listened to like the podcast
Maybe.
that I did with you. I probably don't want to. I would probably cringe so bad. I'm gonna have to now, but I'm gonna be like, oh God, like, oh,
It was a different era.
different era,
It,
different mindset, different mindset.
yeah, and we had no idea where we would be at this point. And how amazing is it too that your husband Brian is like so into this. He's at all the championships.
Yeah.
Talk about people who know. He is dialed in, knows who's who in terms of does he handles you, right?
Yeah.
And he can handle. Some
Yeah.
people they have a significant other or they're like if their significant other gets too involved, you're like, shit, are they actually powerlifting people that could hang?
Sure.
Is this a bad idea? You've heard of some people, they start dating an individual, and all of a sudden, a few months later, that individual's coaching them. What? Is that a good
Yeah.
idea? And like, does this
Uh,
person have any background in powerlifting? And on the surface, you'd be like, oh my God, Meg, be careful. No,
yeah.
Brian knows shit. You like, look, you went 9 for 9 in this battle. You
Yeah.
routinely have attempt selection on point. My man has been, but he's been in this for years now too, though. He's like
That's
a
the
grizzly
thing.
veteran now
That's
too,
the
right?
thing. We've both been around for a long time. And when we first started, neither of us knew anything. It's like we've kind of grown up with the sport in a lot of ways. Like the sport has grown up in the past 8 years. And it's like, so have we at meets. You know what I mean? Like now we know what we're doing. And yeah, he handles me and he does a great job. And it's like over the years we've figured it out and we've dialed it in, but it's practice. And nah, he doesn't know. He only knows powerlifting because of I started powerlifting, right? But that's how you
How
learn.
cool is that?
Like that's how you learn. And he coached before, like he played baseball, he coached baseball, so he understands and he gets the feel of things, but he had to actually learn the sport. But now he knows it, and obviously he knows me. And the key is, like you were saying, when people are like, is my boyfriend or my husband or my whatever that's gonna handle me or coach me, cool. But can they stay objective?
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest part. Of course, you want to win or they want you to win. Like, of course, that's the number one goal, but you have to be able to stay objective when you throw that number on the bar to have the best interest of the lifter in mind as the lifter and not thinking ahead to when the meet's over to your wife that either
Yeah.
just won or lost a meet. Um, and that's, I think, the most important part if you have someone that is close to you, handling you or coaching you. And that's definitely something that he does a good job of because at the end of the day, he has to listen to me after the meet as well.
Because in those situations, it's difficult because the person could be like loaded up for the win. You're looking at how their second deadlift moved. You're
Mm,
looking at the number you need, which might exceed their PR by quite a bit. And you're thinking, if I'm just a straight up coach, I would tell you, you're going to secure second and it will be
right.
fine with that. Or if it's your wife or husband, like significant other, whatever the scenario is, and they're
Hmm.
like, I'm telling you, load up for the win. And you are like, this could be a relationship fight when we get home. This is something that they can
Right.
begrudge you for here on out.
100%. Right. Right.
And
Especially if
there
it's
has to
like,
be,
yeah,
it's
like you're
crazy.
not
It's like 5 years.
securing.
If he fucked up 5 years later, if it's a coach you're never going to see later in life, whatever, you could be 50 and be like, Brian, do you remember you fumbled the ball in Lithuania? Do you remember what you did? And it'd be like, sorry for the 30th time. I don't want, it's
Oh
tough.
God.
And
Yeah.
also, for all of it, through the weight cuts, through like the times get,
Yeah.
because you'll talk to him and he'll talk to you because you're significant others. So it won't be communication, or it may or may not, depending on who it is. It depends on how good you guys are with compartmentalizing. Obviously, you're good at it. So this is
Hmm.
what makes it work. Whereas if you can't compartmentalize all this, and it's not like, because your coach coming in, it's almost like, if your coach comes in when you're like cutting weight or whatever, it's almost like business like. It's almost like, we need to do
Sure.
this, then we're going to do
Right.
that. And
Yeah.
then, even no matter how you're feeling, if you're grumpy, grouchy, whatever, he's not taking, or she's not taking no back talk. It's, no, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. Let's rock and roll. And I need you here doing this, that, and the other. But if it's your significant other talking to you like that, it can change as well.
Sure. Of course.
Right. So it's
Yep.
very unique that you guys have worked this out. And may I also add, Brian knows, like, I've talked to him about this. He knows whether it's lot number advantage, and he's looking at, okay, we don't have lot number
Hmm.
advantage, we do have body weight. I know what the other person's, he knows all that shit. You know how many
Yeah.
times I've talked to actual coaches who
Oh, that don't know
don't
that. I
know
know.
any of
But
this.
again, it's like you gotta want to learn it. Like that sounds terrible, but it's true. Like you have to want to. You're gonna have to ask questions. You're likely gonna have to fuck things up sometimes. Like we've made
Yeah.
mistakes in the past. But it's just like, all right, you made the mistake, you learn from it, you move on, you remember it. And also, not only has he been around since I started lifting, he works really well like on meet days with my coach too. So it's just a combination that like works out in such a way that I've had my best performances like over and over and over, um, which is important because meet day, the actual meet day itself, the vibe of it can change your mentality and, like how you're attacking things. Like I've
It's
figured out how I like to compete and it makes such a big difference.
and he's probably figured it out too.
A
And
hundred percent.
it's so cool that you guys are like the husband and wife duo, and like, showing up at meets. I don't know too many, because he doesn't compete either. He doesn't
No,
he that
he's
like,
just
this
got
is
that
where,
coaching membership, the Paralympic
right.
America coaching membership.
Like, it's unique. Most people, if they're a dual husband and wife situation like that, like Shane Nutt and Chloe
Yeah,
Dublin,
right. Yep.
like, they both compete, they both, like, it's different, right? Whereas it's unique when one significant other doesn't compete,
Yeah,
wasn't involved in it like that, but
sure.
jumped in to an actual competent, significant level. Where,
Right.
I mean, for real competent, not just, well,
Yeah.
yeah, he can get by. No, no,
Yeah.
no.
Sure.
He's
Yeah.
guided you through some battles. He's
Yeah.
a for sure plus
Yeah. Yeah.
through it
Yeah.
all. And yeah, that's
Yeah. I
huge.
think it's like you can have anyone handle you, right? But you, if you want someone to handle you
Yeah.
in certain situations and do a good job, then they have to have the desire to want to learn how to do it. Like he takes it seriously. He might not
Oh
compete,
yeah.
but he takes the handling piece of it very seriously. And so, like, I mean, we've both been doing it now for such a long time.
Has he approached the jury? Has he
That
approached the jury and, like, and protested the calls and stuff?
I'm trying to
Can't
think.
remember if I've seen
I
it.
don't
I
think we
can't
had
remember.
to at nationals. The only time that ever came up, I think, was at Worlds last year, but it was like the automatic. So you didn't even really approach the jury, except I think Big Mike went running to the jury table. But it was like then you didn't even need to because it went automatically to the jury. Do you remember
In
that?
their Yeah, well, the jury was intervening. They can intervene on their own,
Right.
or the coach. I think at Worlds, the national team coach would approach, not your,
Yeah.
because
Right.
the personal coach wouldn't approach. It'll be the
Right.
national team. So then,
Yeah.
depending on, but some of it just straight up, the jury intervened and said, we're going
Yeah.
to jump in,
Right.
ruling this, that, or the other, whatever. So, and I think they changed. They had it. You could protest another lifters. Like you
I
could
do remember
protest,
that.
yeah.
I do remember that. They changed
And
that, right?
they changed that. That's the Gavin Aiden rule. He said he famously said that's a bitch made move, if I may quote. And
I think that's so funny. I mean, yeah, yeah. I
he
mean,
was so upset.
yeah.
He got his the strength guys overturned his third squat at Sheffield. He ended up going chest to chest with the GOAT, Taylor Atwood.
I do remember
And they were
that.
like, it was a whole kerfuffle or whatever. It was intense. But even before that, he had those situations because he's like a borderline squatter on this third,
Yeah,
always and forever. He's built to squat, but unfortunately, he's also
100%.
built. It's difficult for him to get depth due to the leverages and stuff. So it actually is like, look, if the ruling is you could protest your competitor's lift and he gets one red, and all you need is him to get one red. Gavin will for always have one red on his third squat, even if it passes. This guy's very rarely ever going to get a three white lights on his third. So competitors are going to be protesting his squat, and he'll feel his feelings on it due to that are going to be different than most people's because he's probably like,
Yeah.
my friend, every fucking meet I'm getting protested. It's going to feel different. So I get where he's
hmm
coming from. And it
hmm
happened on key moments like he's about to break a world record, make money at Sheffield, and like, his total's gonna be significantly changed due to that, and like the
hmm
outcome of the whole matchup changes, and so yeah, it happens over and over. First time, all right. Second time, okay. Your whole career, because it's
Yeah.
not going to change for him.
Right.
So I get it. I
Yeah.
get where his
Did
feelings are.
they, did that rule gone? They took that rule out, right?
They took the rule out, and I swear to God, it needs to be called the Gavin Aiden ruling of
That's so
taking it out
funny. Because
because
it
he
literally
was
happened right after, like last Worlds
100.
after
Yeah,
that stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it literally happened right after, and he was not shy about it. And because it was so dramatic, him at the biggest meet of all time with Taylor Atwood, who's like, Taylor
Right.
Atwood, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And there's like a straight up confrontation. And Taylor's like, what the shit, man? This isn't me. And
Right.
they're boys. They're good now.
I know. Well, that's like the funniest part about it. Or not,
Yeah.
depending on how you look at it. Right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I know. Gavin is such a passionate dude that I don't know if I still think it surprises me, but he is a passionate freaking dude. There's some
It
we got some
surprises you that he
passion.
went chest to chest with Taylor?
I,
Nah, he's a New York, New Jersey boy. Come on
really,
now.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Have you seen? Like, have you seen how weird does it get back there sometimes?
Like, I mean, I'm not going chest to chest with anyone.
Yeah, you would Sleed or you would Sam Calhoun. I don't know what would happen in the past, but
Oh,
I
God.
think with like men obviously have more testosterone, so maybe it is more aggressive. But I
Yeah.
in terms,
I think some
I,
of the sports, even growing up, are probably more aggressive. You know what I mean? Like men's sports, like you play in football, I'm sure that happens a lot on the football
yes,
field. You know, like
yes,
even basketball, like that happens a lot in men's basketball, whereas like in women's basketball
yeah.
is like incredibly frowned upon for whatever,
Is that
whatever
right? Okay.
that's worth. Yeah, like I mean, I played soccer growing up. It's like, yeah, it's kind of aggressive on the soccer field, but like same thing. Like rarely did I see someone literally physically go chest to chest with
Hmm.
someone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And some people coming from other sports, it's not as weird for them. They're like, well, I mean, I just thought you
Right.
were at a high
It's almost like
level.
it's natural, right?
Yeah, I'm showing passion at a high level of sport. Why is this weird? My
Right.
whole life, like especially if you did certain sports your whole life and then you
Right.
transition into powerlifting, and you're like,
It's like
oh,
ingrained in you for
yeah, you're like,
whatever
oh,
it's,
I didn't know this was going
like
to be. I'm an
a
asshole
big
now. I thought I
deal.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought I was being a leader on the field. And
Yeah.
but do you want to take a quick 2 second break, a quick 2 second pee break here, and then double
Sure.
back? Okay, thank you. Okay. So I got a couple more questions too I wanted to ask you because you've been around for a hot minute and been through a lot of different world championships. Out of all of your whether it's Nats, Worlds, whatever, hey, who was your biggest sports rival right now? If you were to think somebody pushed me to the brink or somebody had me in training, whether it was on that day, push you to the brink, or pushed you in training because you thought you had to. Is there somebody that pops out in your mind? You're like this person.
Oh, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that.
Because it, yeah,
I don't know. Like right now, like this second today, or just in general
just in general, when you look back, because they're,
for the
for
majority of
instance,
my powerlifting, for instance.
yeah, yeah, like like Russ has been ahead healthily in this division for quite some time. And when Brett Gibbs was there, Brett beat him, and then he came back and he beat Brett. And even when he beat
Mm-hmm.
Brett, he was like, I don't know if I could beat this guy. And he ended up beating Brett, and he's like, oh my God. But it was in training, he was like, I can't drag my feet at all. Like he's motivated right now, but it's different feeling when the date is on the wall and you're like, holy shit, I don't know if I'm going to win this.
Mm-hmm.
Or whether even if you didn't have that, when you showed up on the day and you're like, oh my God, because of the battle was so intense and close, they really pushed me to a level I wasn't sure I could hit.
Um, yeah, I mean, well, obviously the closest battle I ever had was the first world that I went to with Maria. And like I knew that the whole time I was training that it was going to be really close as well. Um, I mean, it feels like a different lifetime ago,
It's
you
weird, it
know?
does, right?
Yeah, like that feels weird. And then like in the first, whatever, say half of my powerlifting career, I mean, we never even really had a head-to-head battle, but who I had in my mind the whole entire time, I just wanted one time in my life to have a head-to-head and to win was Sam Calhoun.
She was a figurehead at
Oh,
that era.
and I'm like, man, okay, she broke 500. I'm like, okay, 500, like lifetime goal, like let's go. I remember like her breaking it and Jen breaking it and just being like, all right, like, can I get to 500 type of deal? And like that, like really motivating me. Um, and like of most recent, I mean, let's be honest, I've been chasing Leanne Carolla since I kind of like started back in the 63s. And, you know, at first, that sounded like somewhat ridiculous because I wasn't totaling 500 yet, and they were like already in the 530s, 540s. But I just feel like I'm closing the gap. I mean, they're not at 63 right now, so now I'm basically competing against their numbers at 63, or if they come back to 63. But like, all right, like the gap is getting smaller, you know? So like trying to reach that is definitely something that motivates me. For sure. Like you gotta have something that motivates you. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like specifics. Like I have a very specific goal. Do I want to be able to break the world record? Yes, absolutely.
You're real close, isn't it? Five or it's 557.5, right? Isn't that what Gara? And
Yeah.
you're already at
Yeah.
543. So this isn't you're right knocking on the door of the 550s. If not, obviously Worlds is a stitch different because you just want to win and you don't want to maybe overreach and start missing. So we'll see how that plays out. If you don't need to go too crazy, maybe you don't. Plus, obviously, you win and you go to Sheffield. That is really the place that you want to make a run and try to break some records, right? Have you thought
hmm
about like obviously you must have thought about things like that, like, oh my God, this time I go to Sheffield, this time I win and I go to Sheffield. This one's gonna be
hmm
different. And I can and if you break the world record, oh my gosh. Are these
Yeah,
kind
of
of some of
course
your
I've
new
thought about this. Are you
I
kidding
know.
me?
That's a loaded question, huh? No, I
I've
didn't
been
think
thinking
about it.
about this for the past 2 years.
Fair, fair.
No, 100%. Like that is absolutely in my mind. I mean, that's been a goal. Again, it's like something that like, all right, like if I want to do this, I know what I have to do, you know? And each year it's like I'm getting closer. And I think that this is the year that I can make it happen. So similar to like going to, nationals, I'm like, I feel like this is the year like I'm ready for this. I can make it happen and I'm going to make it happen.
And obviously I got to move to 76. Gara and Leah then said, okay, we're probably going to stay 69. Are you thinking at all like you're probably best at 63? Is there any way, because you have a go around here off of your performance at Worlds, then you can have an invite to Sheffield and then an invite to World Games. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of, actually, you know what? I haven't even checked if World Games, do you know what weight classes they combine? I could check it right now, but do you know off the
I
top of your head?
think middleweight is like I don't know. Maybe it's 57 to 69. I don't know if that's right though, but probably, right? And then
I'm gonna
76 to 84, 84 plus. That probably
yeah,
makes sense.
here's you like I just pulled this up. So women's lightweight 47.52. Let's take a look at this. Okay. Alrighty. Women's middleweight 57 and 63. That's right. So it'd really behoove you to stay 60. Yeah, I guess this kind of locks you in for a hot minute to stay 63. That's even to 2025 because Sheffield, World Games, etc. Do you think at all, like, is there any inclination for you to be like, what happens if I'm also a small 69? You don't have to fill it out. Or are you thinking, you know what? I'm staying 63. If any of those ladies want to come back down, whatever, but I can really start solidifying yourself down here, breaking world records, push it, do your own thing.
Yeah. I always joke about going, yeah, I don't even know if I'm joking. I'm like, yeah, someday I'll go 69. I don't know. I just want to be the shortest in the weight class and the most jacked. That's really the goal. Uh, um, but yes, I do fit very, very well within the 63 weight class. So I like there's no reason for me to necessarily move to 69, in the near future, at least. And realistically, like how much more muscle am I going to put on my body? I don't know. Um, I'm not that tall, in case anyone is wondering. Like I'm 5'2". So I'm not that
Short for
tall.
it's not super short either, but
It's all super short. No.
yeah, it's around
But
average,
in
right?
terms of like filling out the weight class, like I feel like I fill out 63 pretty nice. I don't know if I would fill out 69 that nice. I might be able to
Cut it.
fill out 69, but I don't
You
think I'd
can
be
fill it
able
out.
to
Yeah,
gain,
yo,
like
yeah.
be a lean. I don't know if I could be a lean 69. Let's put it that way.
How much do you cut for 63? Because right now, I know when you first came back after having twins, you didn't have the muscle mass you're saying, but now you're
Right.
right back to being jacked and look like you.
Yeah.
Are you cutting for 63 right now?
Very minimally. I mean, for nationals, no. Because I was sick, then I was like eating back up. Then typically I end up losing when I taper, I end up losing like some water weight when my volume drops. So I don't end up really cutting. Like I may or may not gut cut, but it's like not that aggressive and I don't have to water load or anything. So like,
Mm,
I'm not having to try that hard to be a 63. Let's put it that way. Where it's like, oh, I can't wait to go 69. It would be more
yeah, yeah.
like, yeah, let's try something new.
Before we talk about the future, what is your proudest moment so far in powerlifting?
Um, I don't know.
That's a tough one, huh?
Yeah, like just proudest of myself, honestly, might be nationals, like this past nationals. Maybe that's just, by recency bias.
But at the same time, put it this way: if someone was to say, "How good were you?" This point, 9 for 9, biggest total, you'd be like, compare that to whoever you want to compare to. Take that,
Yeah.
and take it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's just like so many different factors went into it. Uh, like honestly, I getting sick right before nationals was really challenging mentally, knowing that I was going to have to hit close to my top end to beat Celine. Like going in my head, I was like, all right, if Celine has a good day, like I've heard she's had really good training. If she's made great progress and she has a good day, she goes 9 for 9, like maybe she hits 540. So I have to have a good day to
Mm,
win. And
yeah.
I, 5 days out felt terrible. And the barbell felt like a bajillion pounds. And like that is not great for your confidence going in, and you're 5 days out from a meet. And like so basically just like trusting in the meet prep and trusting in the fact that I'd feel better each day. But even on meet day, like I really, really kind of just it was the first time that I've just let my coach put the numbers on the bar and Brian put the numbers on the bar and like listen to what they were saying because I didn't know, like everything felt heavy. Regardless of how it was moving, everything felt heavy.
It turned around so quickly.
What?
how did it turn around so quickly? It's crazy how that can happen. You can get sick,
Yeah.
turn around, and be fine pretty quick. But
Hmm.
we've seen the opposite. Like
Sure.
recently, Nick Manders tried to get on the Canadian national team. He got sick leading into it. He was kind of
Hmm.
there, but he was not 100%. And it did not turn
Hmm.
around in time 100%. That's nerve
Right.
wracking. There's nothing you could do about it. That is out of your
Yeah.
control at that point.
100%. And I didn't know what it was going to be like on meet day. That's scary. You know, when you have, I had the greatest meet prep ever. I'm feeling so good. And then it's like you got sick and you don't know what it's going to feel like. And that's scary because it's a day that you want to be so dialed in for. And now there's this huge chunk that's just throw it out the window. It's out of your control. Uh, I just like when I got sick, the second I could, I tried to take care of everything I could, like anything I could control. I couldn't control um necessarily how I felt. I couldn't control like my body weight. But like I could control rehydrating. I could control getting calories in. Like it wasn't ideal, but I remember the first day that I was like eating again, I ate I forget like exactly how many calories, but I was like, I'm just gonna eat. I'm just gonna eat. But protein sounded like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of in my
Weird how
life.
that works. I know exactly what you mean.
Hmm. So I think I ate like 500 grams of carbs by the end of the day.
It's
And I was
amazing.
like, listen, this is what I can do. That can help me in, like in a couple of days, I need to put stuff in my body, even though if I don't want to, like this will help me, even though it feels terrible right now. And like each day it's like, okay, like I feel a little bit better. Like what's going to help me is getting outside and walking 10 minutes, and not lying on the couch for 24 hours, you know? Um, so just like little things. And also it's like those little things that can build a little bit of confidence, build a little bit of confidence. Getting in and doing my training sessions, like I could control that even if I couldn't necessarily control the weight on the bar. So like going through the motions helped build my confidence. It wasn't until the day, I think before the meet, or maybe it was 2 days out, I had a training session and I was like, I think I'm going to be okay. I think I'm going to be able to throw on the bar what I need. Like that was the first day I was confident.
Gotta be nerve wracking as hell because I remember the hype on Celine. She took herself, she went dark in terms of how much social
Yeah.
media she's putting out. But the whispers about her, I don't know if they made their way to you, but they made their way to me, and people were really excited about what she might bring.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the times, if those whispers did make themselves to you, and you're like, oh, good, perfect, because I don't know what I'm going to be like right up until the day
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's got
it
to be
was
nerve wracking.
very, very nerve-wracking, very challenging. And I also think that it probably came out like in some of, I'm typically like a pretty emotional, like lifter in general. Like I get pretty hyped for some of my lifts, but I feel like it probably came out more on the platform than like it necessarily does all of the time, just because of how many things were going through my head the week leading up to nationals. And even like the night of, like as I started competing, it was like, I don't know, like warm-ups felt great. I took my first squat, felt great. Took my second. I was like, ooh, that felt harder than I would have expected. Like not exactly how I wanted that to feel. Because it should have felt easy, right? Like it should have felt really good. And like walking in the back and, Brian looks at me and he's like, what do you think? What do you think? You think you got five? And I was like, I really wanted to say 2.5, like that in my body at that moment, I was like, I don't know. Like, I think I have 2.5, maybe. And he was like, great. So 5.5. And I'm like, okay, yeah, 5.5. But like giving over the trust into him and Kelly watching me, knowing what I needed to do, just like projecting forward, like if we both go 9 for 9, what I needed, and watching me squat and saying, like, we think she can do this. It might be hard, but we think she can do this. Um, and that was kind of like for me between the second and the third squat when I walked out there, like really when the switch flipped, like from me, like almost again, like you can't think about the past when you're living a moment. Like I kept thinking about like, all right, like I was on my bathroom floor 5 days ago, throwing up everything, all of my body. I can't think about that when I'm trying to get under 195 kilos. Like that's not going to benefit me, or put me in a good headspace. So like I actually said to myself, like, do you want to be a champion? And if you do, like what do champions do? They forget about that shit and they take care of the business that's in front of them. And my third squat felt better than my second, like just on my back. And like physically, it was like, okay, I have arrived. You know what I mean? Like, that's when I knew I was gonna be okay. Like, I'm gonna get this job done today.
You guys are in a big group chat, right? Team USA,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. But if people think about like that's a pretty all-star group chat. What do you guys talk about in that group chat? Do you guys like talk you like
We
do you
mostly
guys
just
talk
talk
about
shit about you. No, I'm just kidding.
wait, I was gonna say about like the Italians or the French. It's about kicking. You hear his fucking
I'm
podcast.
just, yeah, you hear
But
that?
what do you guys like talk often? What do you guys talk about in there? I guess it'll be more active the closer you get, obviously, to the actual worlds, but
Yeah. I mean, like right now, especially because nationals just happened, like there's a lot of logistical things that we're
mm.
still going through, between nationals and like signing up for worlds and all the travel and all that jazz, getting everything planned out. So it's not that
it probably
exciting right now.
it probably helps. Yeah. I mean nominations
You
right to
know,
solidify when you get
yeah,
nominations, you start talking about battles, start talking about things
sure.
like that. But it's gotta help some of the junior team members, like first time on the team, to have people like you who
Hmm.
have been around the block. It like it, you're like an elder stateswoman in terms of the
An
sport right now.
elder stateswoman.
Did I make you sound like you're 65? I didn't mean it
Yeah,
like that.
literally in my head, I pictured like one of those powdered wigs. Like I was like, oh
Oh
God.
God. You're like, Ryan, if you thought that was a compliment,
Come
you missed the mark.
on.
You
I'm
missed the
seasoned.
mark,
I'm
sir.
seasoned. Okay.
Seasoned. Okay, seasoned. Okay. But it's gotta help having like you around, I would assume. I think I was talking to Russ actually, and how when I first started powerlifting, there was a guy who mentored me, took me under his wing, and he was already a national champion. He was like in the news in Canada, and he was like a big
Mm,
wheel around. So when I showed up to a competition, he doesn't need to give me, he wasn't like the heart to heart or motivational speech kind of guy,
yeah.
but you don't really got to be. I would show up to the meet with him, and
Mm,
people would automatically be like, "Oh, you're with Alex?"
hmm.
And things were different. In my confidence, if I walked into the warm up room, but I walked with him, I
Yeah.
walk differently. I'm
Sure.
like, everything feels a little different. And I'm sure that's one thing Team USA has. Other nations don't have icons or legends of the game or whatever. I'm making up for the elder stateswoman earlier by saying, but don't have this. Where like if they walk in there and have seasoned veterans like you or whoever else, it'll feel a little different. Or if someone's having a tough cut and you show up and they're like, hey,
Hmm.
we need some help. And they're like, oh shit, Meg has done insane cuts, turned around and broke world records. And if you
Hmm.
tell the person in the middle of a really tough cut, you're gonna be all right. This is
Hmm.
what we're gonna do. Trust. And at the bottom of that cut, at the very bottom, you start questioning, like, am I gonna feel the same? Is everything gonna be
Sure.
okay? And when
Yeah.
you say, I flew across to the other side of the world, had the worst cut of my life, no sleep all night, woke up, broke a squat world record, broke a
Hmm.
total world record. Yes, you're gonna be fine. It'll hit
Yeah.
different. We were talking about
Sure.
experience. Experience sounds different. And
Yeah.
you bring that.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, even as simple as like travel, I mean, we travel a lot in the US. I'm sure Canada is the same west to east coast to compete, whether it's nationals or whatever, but still like international travel, it's a little different. I don't think it's a big deal if you are prepared for it, but that's the thing, like your first time, you don't know how to be prepared for it. I didn't know how to be prepared for it my first time. I made a lot of stupid mistakes, but I now know how to be prepared for it. And I think that's a huge benefit of having lifters that have done it before and have been around for a little while. Because they have that experience that they can share. So I do think that's a huge benefit. And like just again, like your confidence in knowing that if you do have questions, like there are people that have likely had a similar experience before, like it helps you be a little bit more confident going into the unknown.
And I'm telling you, it doesn't take as like Russ was like, yeah, I don't know what I would say or whatever. And I was like, man, you'd be surprised that you don't have to say much.
Yeah.
Just be in the room when someone's cutting, and they look over
Yeah.
to you, and they're like, that's Megan Scanlon beside me, and
Yeah.
they
And it's like,
already know. That's it.
Right. And it's like,
All you
you
need
don't even
sometimes.
necessarily
Just
need
be
to say
there.
anything. It's just they know that you've had a similar experience. You know,
Be,
I'm going to be okay. Others have made it through this
mm.
before. I'm going to be okay.
Isn't it weird how, like, just in life in general, how much that helps? Just
Hmm.
knowing I'm not the only one who's gone through this, other people have, and just not being alone through this stuff. The person doesn't have to say much, but if they're there, how
Yeah.
much that presence changes everything.
100%. 100%.
It's yeah. We overthink what we need to do to help someone out. You don't gotta, you don't. But I'm not that guy or girl with the big one-liners, or the you don't gotta be. Just
Mm-mm.
show up. Be there when
Hmm.
they need you. And well,
Yeah.
you know, because you're a mom, right? So when your kids are like in school, everyone's seen those videos on Instagram where the kid, when he spots his mom or dad and
Hmm.
realizes they're in the audience, they're like, oh shit, all of a sudden everything turned. You know, the expression on their face and everything. Even
Yeah.
like everything, man. It happens, period.
Yeah.
Even freaking look,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
a
yeah. Okay. I know what you're saying now. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
even like
Yeah.
I'm a
Yes.
dog guy. Instagram sends me dog videos. This
Yeah.
one dog was getting groomed, looked through the window,
Yeah.
recognized his dad, and the dog well, started
Yeah.
smiling like, "Hey, shit, look who's here!" You
Yeah.
know, like presence can be huge. Just being
Yeah.
around, and you're now in a situation where your presence to like other athletes who are it's their first time or whatever, it's going to be different. It's going to hit different. And here's what was exciting: the biggest is yet to come for you, even after all these years. A veteran for like yourself who's been through all like this is your fourth worlds, but Sheffield, World Games, like it's only going to get bigger for you even still. You haven't seen it all yet, which is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal because that's how I kind of feel about it. Like I've done a lot, but there are a couple things I have not done yet. There are a couple
Mhm.
of things left on that list that I would like to check off, you know?
Are the things outside of straight competing, like when you're done competing,
Mm.
are you going to stay in the game because you coach? But are you
Hmm.
going to, is there other things you want to achieve as well in the game? Or have you not thought of it too much? Because obviously you don't plan on stopping competing anytime soon.
Like what?
Well, this, you know what I often thought? Um, we're having more and more women in terms of commentators. Sheffield's me and Joe Whiteley and me for Worlds. So there's like
Yeah.
commentating, like I that's good. The representation. Amelia Potter is commentating
Hmm.
more and more, and she's awesome. And she was working the Sheffield as well. So that's good. But you know what? I still think we have a bit of a gap are things
Hmm.
like podcasts. There's not a lot of female podcasts. I've
Hmm.
noticed. I'm not saying you got a podcast, but there are some gaps.
Sure.
Powerlifting is extremely, when I think of other sports, it's not parody. Powerlifting is one where men will debate till the cows come home
Hmm.
on sports debates on the women's division, a women's showdown, and we get crazy excited. Sheffield's biggest showdown might have been the 69 kilo class with Agatha, Leah, and
Might
Bob.
have.
Like, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah,
It
exactly.
was
Yeah. So I
insane.
mean, in men usually is and women as well too for some
Yeah.
reason aren't supporting female sports and sports leagues, historically speaking. In powerlifting, I talk to my buddies who
That's
aren't
true.
into powerlifting, and I got to explain to them, my friend, all of the men love women's powerlifting. Like the battles are amazing, the
Yeah.
showdowns are amazing, and women support it too. And
Hmm.
it's kind of unique for powerlifting. And I do think
Yeah.
we have some more growth to be had. I don't know if you've thought about things like this or what you see, what you would do to change or whatever, but
Yeah. No, I've thought about it a little bit. It is pretty cool. I think that there's just like level of respect, right? Like we know as powerlifters, or anyone that's invested in the sport, like what goes into it. You know, so when you see someone out there on the platform, like there's already a level of built-in respect because you know what they've done to just show up. Never mind how their day goes, but like you've known the work that they put in for like to have 9 attempts, which like is amazing when you think about it. You know, how many months of work goes into such a small period of time. So it's like this built-in level of respect that you just have for anyone that shows up to compete, point blank. And I think that's cool. And I think that's like you're saying, like it is pretty cool. Like in terms of the women's powerlifting scene and the competition in the women's side is talked about, like you're saying, like and debated about just like the men's, on the same
mm,
podcast where usually in sports that doesn't happen. Um, And that's a really cool thing. But yeah, no, I mean, like when I'm done competing, and I don't know, like when I'm done competing at an elite level, like will I still compete? I don't know, because I don't know if I have that in me. Do you know what I
Like,
mean?
I think you'll lift. Yeah.
Yeah, like
That's
I'll lift. I'll always lift.
right. It's so there's like people like Susie Gary and
Sure.
people who was breaking world records, open world records, damn near pushing 50. Like it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And but
Mm-hmm.
the game's changed. The women's side is far more
Yes.
competitive now. So I don't know if that's realistic anymore. But
Right.
or you could have like a David Rick style person who's like 60 and still like was competitive
It's
enough.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's crazy. Where so, but that's unique. So you could be like, look at as long as I'm crazy competitive, I can be in the open still and do my damn thing and whatever. Or some people are like, look it, I'm not fucking win world titles, all right? I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
just
Right.
top 10 in the nation,
Yes.
number one in the world to top 10 in the nation. Maybe you're like,
Right.
I don't know if that's fun or humbling, or maybe when you're like 45, you're like, I love the fact I can hang and maybe crack the top five with these ladies at 25. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what that looks like.
I
Or if
don't know
you
what it
still
looks
want to
like either.
grind when you're 45 like that. Like if you're like, man, that's another
Yes.
10 years of this grind.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know what a lot of that looks like. But like things that I do know, like I'll definitely always lift. I'll definitely coach. Like I'll definitely be around the sport. Um, I am going to, I'm not even going to say thinking, I'm going to say going to um start a podcast
Let
that
me know. Let me know. I'll
what?
help out. Listen, you want
Yeah.
whatever help you whatever it is, I'll help out. Let me know because I do think
I
women
appreciate that.
need more podcasts by women.
Yeah. 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 I agree with you and I appreciate that. And it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, but always been like, yeah, maybe someday. Yeah, maybe someday. You know what I mean? It's like, why not just do it? Rip the band-aid off. And I, again, there are a lot of different avenues you could go down with it, but it's something where, I'd want to give a lot of female lifters like a voice, both elite level lifters and also lifters that perhaps aren't, in the top 10 of the world, but are strong. They have a lot of accomplishments in and out of powerlifting because I think a lot of people can relate to that. You know what I mean? Um, and I don't know, like, I don't know. See what happens.
Yeah, I mean, look at things change quickly and you don't know what doors open up. The good thing is we're entering into a time where powerlifting's reach is exponentially growing. So whatever
Yeah.
endeavor you want will be exponentially more healthy. In terms like you start a podcast, who's going to listen? Well, Meg, if you're a several-time world champion and everyone's going to know it, people are going to see you on CBS, Eurosport, Sheffield, Road to Sheffield videos where they tell your story and the comeback and the whole nine that you've done. Oh, by the way, you drop a podcast around that time. Like timing is everything. If you do it while the spotlight's on you, it's
Mm.
going to help. It's going to help.
Sure,
And
of course.
what I love myself, one of the biggest things I love is talking to people about their story. I
Yeah.
at the Powerlifting America Nationals, I had to delay one of my flights. Long story, but so one of my flights got delayed, and I was there at the hotel for like 6 hours longer than I thought I was going to be. And I walked into the casino part, kind of where we're all chilling. And I ran into Dina, who's a 63, and we
Oh
started
yeah.
shooting the shit. And she's from Iraq originally.
Mm-hmm.
And we just started talking. And like I told her, oh, frig, I told her my situation. She's there for a few more hours too. And we talked for like an hour or whatever, like a while. And we eventually got into like I was telling her a bit about my story, getting into like King of this commentating. She got into her story. Not going to spoil alert it because I'm going to have her on the
Sure.
podcast, but phenomenal. And it just
Mm-hmm.
you don't know everybody's story. It's when I talk to people
No.
about what kind of a podcast you have. Obviously, it's a powerlifting podcast, but one of my favorite parts is having a powerlifter on. That got you in the door that we talk. But
Yeah.
hearing all of our different stories, we are literally a sport that's all over the world. And some people
Mm-hmm.
have the most riveting stories, and we have had moments on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest blessings and the biggest piece I love the most is just diving into a good story, hearing a background story, or just
Right.
talking back and forth. What
Right.
motivates you, whatever.
Well, it's like
And
someone's going to relate to it.
yeah,
Right? It might be for some of us, it might be like a great story. Like stories are phenomenal. Like listening to people's stories is one of the most interesting things, right? And in a way, I feel like it's kind of a lost art. Like, but it's also I think like you were saying before when you were saying that, you know, having someone that's been there before, like knowing that someone's been in a similar position or gone through something similar is kind of like comforting or that you can relate to it in some way. It's like you can relate to people's story, maybe not the whole thing, but like bits and pieces to it, like in some way. And I think that is something that is a great, like a cool thing about the sport and how it brings so many people together. And that you meet so many people from different parts of the world. Um, but also like it kind of threads people together that one may have never met each other, two come from different backgrounds, different places. Like it's just it's a really cool part of it. The people.
I I I I, I ran into a man, Max Hall at Western Canadian Nationals. SBD did the stream and flew me
Yeah.
out for the commentary. Super grateful they do stuff like that. And he told me, like, you meet people, you take pics, and like, oh, cool, man. Like, the world's
Mm-hmm.
commentators here, and I listen to the podcast. Thanks, man. Thanks. And the one guy, Max, said, man, your podcast saved my life. And I thought he might have been exaggerating. He goes, no, I'm serious. He said, when Leah Babwa came on and talked about how her whole life, she didn't know she was autistic until she was, I want to say, around 20. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, you've obviously met her, but you would almost never know. And
Right.
just the story says you don't know what people deal with day to day.
Sure.
And I remember talking to her being like, I cannot tell. Like I can't,
Sure.
you can't visibly see. Gabby Martinez also. And
Right.
Gabby's gone on the podcast, been very transparent about it as well, saying, trust me, we think differently. And your whole life until you actually find out you're autistic and on that spectrum somewhere. And we have like biases, what we think it'll look like, and you just know. But they're like, everything is so close to normal, but what isn't normal to you and is to everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
literally from whether it's flare ups or just uncontrollable outbursts where you're like, you get rushed of emotions, uncontrollably uncomfortable in certain situations where you're like, oh, well, you're just introverted. No, my friend, I'm talking way worse than
Right.
that, to a lot of different unique things that happen when you're autistic. And until you found out, you just thought like your family doesn't understand you, your friends don't understand you, and you don't even understand yourself. And you start telling yourself, like Leah said, in the worst of it, she thought, I will never be understood. I'm just a weird person. My family doesn't even understand me. Who would actually ever love me as
Right.
me?
Sure.
I am just that person. And you beat yourself up. And she was said, like, from bouts of suicidal thoughts to just the darkest of dark, until she found out, no, I'm autistic. And then all
Right.
of a sudden, now that you know, go online, research it, find out coping mechanisms, find out, okay, no, there's a lot of people out there who deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And you start realizing you can adjust now. And this individual was listening to my podcast, heard Leah Bavla, was literally in the bottom of it, and said,
Mm-hmm.
holy shit, I'm autistic.
This is
That's
me.
me. And
Right.
literally found out there on the podcast, and his life changed as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and I've had people come on talk about, like Sophia Ellis, talking about um, being sexually abused when she was younger, developing an eating disorder, and literally on the brink as well. And now she's one of the strongest women in the world in the 76
Mm-hmm.
kilo, had the biggest deadlift in British history, medaling at worlds, blah, 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 right? But people coming on telling their story, and it is absolutely riveting, breathtaking. Jonathan Garcia just came on talking about his father went to prison. The cops literally rushed his house, and was kicked onto the ground at 11 with a gun in his face. And then his father came out of prison. There's a physical altercation with him and his dad. He got kicked out. Had a had a daughter with a girl who walked out on him and his daughter, and he had to raise the daughter alone. His dad kicked out his brother when he found out he was gay. So he took on his younger brother, his daughter, whom the mother walked out on, and literally had a physical altercation with his dad and was out. And he's like 20 years old, taking all of that on.
Mm-hmm.
And incredible stories, really. Like, my friend, you have no idea how physically but mentally tough and
Mm-hmm.
strong you are. A human to be able to go through that, Jonathan, and to be at 35 years old, going to the world championships, unofficially broke the world record. And he's like, this is my run. I want my daughter. And one of
Yeah.
the chilling moments he had, he's like, I just recently had a son, and my son born 2 months early. Very scary when it's that early. And he's bedside, and he promised his son, you make it through this, kid, and your dad is going to be a world champion. I'm going to make you proud of me. He's like, fight, stick through this. Let's do this. And then he found out that he competes at the world championships on his son's first birthday.
That's crazy.
And he said, if there's a sign, he's like, so that's a wrap. I'm going to win. And that's it. There
Yeah.
is no maybe.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
I found
Yeah.
that out, I made
Right.
that promise bedside.
It's done.
Once I
Yeah.
It's a wrap,
Yeah.
son. And stories like that, I literally got chills. Like, I live for those kind of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to sit down and talk like that. Yeah, if I could gift you anything, have those. Have a few of those that'll change your life. You'll never forget them.
Yeah. Yeah.
However many you have, if you do like a year of it, you'll be like, okay, well, I'll never forget these.
Yeah. But it's the people. I mean, that's what makes things great, you know? Um, a lot of the experience is the people.
For sure. But to a large extent, a lot of these events are just excuses to have life experiences.
It's true.
It's true. We give meaning to it because we need meaning.
Hmm.
And it's just that's why when people are like, I don't know if I'm going to go, I don't know if I'm going to do this,
Like,
I'm like,
yeah, you're going.
it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you not experience life? Go out there and do it.
Hmm.
Experience it. Trust me. It may never come back around again.
Hmm.
This is a chapter in life that's going to close eventually.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that's one thing. I used to be very much, I wouldn't, not that I wouldn't want to go, but I would like build it up so much in my head and have so much anxiety about doing different things that I would either make it really short or end up not going or end up whatever. Um, and now I have gotten a lot better at stepping, like knowing that the experience is worth it. So like getting outside of my comfort zone of not doing things, um, because I'm projecting what anxieties I have forward onto what might happen. You know what I mean? Even like going to Sweden, like I flew in the day before because I had such a hard
Wow.
time letting go of like the controllables of like not being at home and like knowing my surroundings and knowing, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being in
You're
a
going to
place I
limit the
don't
comfort zone.
know.
You're going to limit the
Yeah.
time you're out of your comfort zone, is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. Um, when that's not a smart idea, first of all. Not recommended, but it wasn't because of any other reason rather than, yeah, like I had a hard time when I was younger, like getting outside of my comfort zone, um, into like the unknown and like would hold myself back from doing things because of it. Um, where I think now I've gotten much better at knowing that the experience and the people like is 100% worth stepping outside of my comfort zone and whatever that looks like. And I've done so many things after having children. Really, like I feel like having kids changed me. Like I feel like some people have a certain experience that changes them. And for me, I think it was both my pregnancy and having children changed a lot for me. And I've done more after having kids than I could have dreamed of, but also than I did prior. Like I've had so many different experiences. And I feel like that's probably the opposite for a lot of people. But I think I just
Yeah.
realized that you don't necessarily have these opportunities come back again. And the experiences and the opportunities that make your life like so much more rich and they also give you so much more experiences to share. So yeah, I don't know.
It, what are we doing if not having experiences and just embracing it
Yeah.
and getting out of your comfort zone? It is, for the life of me, cannot imagine going to work, coming home, watching some shows, put the kids to bed, waking up, go to work, come home,
Yeah.
make kids dinner, the kids to bed, and that's your life. Like
Yeah. I
the
know.
amount, and the fact that like it's crazy. You thought you were gonna lose all that once you had kids, and it's so the fact that like afterwards, no, the
I
best is
know.
yet to come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm like a pretty rigid person. And I feel like before I had children, I could be like that was something I could do um, and function. And it was okay because it was only affecting me and perhaps, like my relationship. But like I could be rigid and it was fine. But that's how I got about functioning I knew what my schedule was going to be. I stuck to that, and that was that. Day in and day out. So kind of like what you're saying, your worst fear is your schedule being like, I go to work, I come home. I'm like, that sounds great. Um, but like,
Sorry.
um, but like when I was pregnant, I had a really rough pregnancy, and so many things were unknown. And then having children, there are so many unknowns. And I actually had a moment in my head where I was like, I can continue to try to be rigid and to control things, but there are so many things you cannot control. And by being a bit more flexible and by letting go of some of the control, it actually brings so much more enjoyment into life and into like the process of what's happening around you. Um, despite me freaking out about it for a year, like it made me grow a lot as a person to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah, letting no matter what in terms of what you think the future is going to be like, it almost never is going to be exactly like that. It
No.
almost never works out exactly like that when you let go of certain things like that. And as you get older, your perspective changes and you change. And what you thought you
Yeah, you
wanted, you
can't
didn't even really
control
want.
everything, no matter how much you try. It doesn't matter. You cannot control everything. Things are going to happen out of your control that you couldn't have changed, no matter how much you tried to change. You can't change it. You can only change what you do from there and the decisions you make from there. Um, So like you gotta be flexible and enjoy stuff.
Would you change anything that you've done in the past? Like, would you change something that you've done in the past? Would you go back and be like, I would not have done this if I could?
I mean, I don't want that's a hard question because I feel like your
Mm,
past like does create who you are, right? I just wish I learned some of the lessons earlier.
yeah,
And I don't know if that
same.
would have changed anything, but I do think it would have given me more experiences, given me more opportunities, allowed me to enjoy it more um, than I was at that time. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to change anything specific because I think it would change where I am now. You know what I mean? But just in general, I feel like I wish I learned some things earlier, but maybe that's part of it. It's just getting older and it coming with age. I don't know. Um, but yeah.
I mean, you change one thing, you could accidentally change everything. So you got to be careful with those wishes. In
Yeah.
real life, you go back and you change one harsh moment in your life. You might change everything afterwards, though, because that moment, as harsh it as it is, defined you one way or the other, made you do something and react to it one way or the other.
Hmm.
Maybe better, maybe worse, you don't know.
Right.
But if you're happy where you're at, you got to be careful going back, changing anything. But there is
Yeah.
things like I know exactly what you mean where you're like, waste of time here. The biggest thing is like I would have changed this earlier. I would be a little further ahead right now, or I wouldn't have wasted this, that, or whatever. It's
Hmm.
mostly that. It's mostly if I could have done this sooner, as opposed to I wish I wouldn't have tried that.
Yes. 100%. Just sooner. Like I wish it would have been like I would have came into like realization sooner. Um, but I think that for me, it really took like a huge life change for that to happen,
On the
which,
flip side,
you know,
you still, no matter what, and I think that's all of us are going to go through that. And then I tell myself, but like for instance, use yourself as an example, you still end up world champion, going back for your fourth now world championship, and everything in
Oh
front of
yeah.
you. So you did everything worked out all right. Like it'd be easy to be like, imagine I found powerlifting sooner than 28. But
Yeah.
maybe if you found it at 18, by the time you're 28, you would have been done. Who knows? You would have got some
100%.
injuries and yeah,
Yeah.
and
I don't
missed all
necessarily
this.
think of that, like, oh, I should
Oh,
have found it
really?
younger. It's like, nah, like I think I found it when I should have found it. You know, I wish I enjoyed it a little bit more when, like on the first half of my powerlifting career than I did. I think I enjoy it a whole lot more now, and like I appreciate the experiences I have a whole lot more now. I wish I had some of that, because I think it also would have made me probably a better athlete and a better powerlifter. Probably a better person. Not that I was a bad person, but like a more chill and relaxed person, about like the sport and kind of like in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, the fact that you did experience, like for instance, if you went, would you have stayed 57 or would you have told younger self go 63? Or do you think you needed to experience how difficult, be tried, tested, and true? Like you have that in your back pocket. You have that story. You have that adversity you had to overcome. And that
Hmm.
makes you now appreciate being like, 63 and what it is now. Like there was something to glean from having gone through it too, right? Yeah. Or your
Yeah.
perspective of take it in now because you didn't earlier, because
Right.
you did maybe mitigate experiences, show up a little later to Sweden to get in and
Hmm.
out, let me get in and out and get it done. Whereas now you're older, you're like, nah, it's not about getting in and out and getting it done. Stick around, meet people, see things and
Hmm.
appreciate. Kristen
Yeah.
Dunsmore actually was talking about that, where 2019, she was more get in and out. 2022, she didn't know she'd ever get back to the world championship ever again.
Right.
And this time when she caught back, she was like, I'm going to stick around and go on safaris and hang out with people.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I was definitely get in and get out in 2019. Like, this is why I'm here. This is the goal. I'm gonna get in and get out. And now it's like I'm going to like enjoy the moment, you know? And I think that me coming back to powerlifting, and kind of like anything that I decide to do now, like that's a big part of it. It's like I'm gonna enjoy like the moment of it. Um, like it's not just necessarily get in, get out. And in some ways, it makes me pick and choose what I'm going to do or what I'm going to try or, what I'm going to commit to a little bit differently, right? Like if I'm saying yes to something, it's because I want to say yes and I want to enjoy it and be in the moment of it. And not necessarily feel like I'm doing it because I should or because I'm obligated to.
Yeah. I time is fleeting, and that's what makes every single moment actually like you wish you could go on forever, but on the flip side, it wouldn't mean anything if it did. It's
Yeah.
all fleeting.
Yeah.
It's good. The next run could be the last run, which makes this run so much specialer
Hmm.
all the time. But yeah. Listen, thank you for coming on the podcast. We've done over 2 hours already, huh? You will be good if you do your own podcast. You're easy to talk to. And yeah, think about it. Anyways, think about it because this next little run is going to be a big run and it's going to, conceivably take you right over to China World Games 2025. This next meet's a big one.
It is. It'll be fun. Lithuania,
I
it sounds
know.
like a good time, you know?
I've never been to China. I've never been to like, where have I been in Asia? Well,
I haven't.
Istanbul, Turkey, but
That,
which is kind of like right up in
yeah.
the middle.
I've definitely never been in that region. And
Before powerlifting, very little did I leave the country. After
same.
powerlifting, like since powerlifting, it's taken me all over the world,
Yeah.
constantly, all the
No,
time.
I'm the same. I mean, I think I went to like the Caribbean once in like high school, and then
Yeah.
I went to Sweden. That was like the next time I left the country,
Oh my
like,
God.
yeah. And now it's like, okay, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Sweden, I've been to Malta, I went to Australia. Like, I've been a lot of different places now because of powerlifting that I never, ever, ever, ever would have gone otherwise.
You got to at some point in your life, like obviously you're going to do Lithuania, and then as long as you just have to podium to make it to China. So it seems
Hmm.
very unlikely you don't at the very least go to China. And then obviously Sheffield's in the UK, and powerlifting in France right now is like a freaking rock concert when you go to one of those events. If ever you get the opportunity, I know they're holding a bunch of money meets, etc. Holy freaking smokes, is it the wildest over there? And they are
It does look
powerlifting nerds.
wild in France.
They are powerlifting
Every
nerds too.
every meet they do looks wild. You know, like I feel like some countries like have a meet. You know what I mean? Like a meet. I
Yeah.
feel like every meet they do looks wild.
It's like a local meet, and they'll have 700 people chanting, like
Yeah.
chanting. And Penn is
Well, I
like, yeah,
believe
that
it.
was our local meet.
Because at Worlds, they have such a great crew that shows
Yeah,
up and chants for every lifter.
they paint their faces and wave the flags. Worlds itself, the vibe has changed. It's
Yeah, it has.
gotten,
It's great. I love it.
yeah, I know.
Like from
That's what
Sweden to last year, so different.
totally different now. Whole nother ball
Yeah.
game. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But anyways, thank you for coming on the podcast. How do people get a hold of you if they want coaching, etc.?
Yeah. The easiest way is just on Instagram. My Instagram is Meg Scanlift. I have a website too, but everything's Meg Scanlift, so it's easy to remember.
It you like it
Like to keep
doesn't,
it easy.
you should have a website, yes, but people are just going to hit you up
Doesn't
on Instagram
matter.
anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't
That's
matter. Let's be
it's literally
honest.
how it goes. If you're like, can you please go to my website? It's like, trust me, just take them through Instagram because they're just going
Yeah,
to
it's
go through
easier. It's
Instagram.
easier. I don't even
Yeah,
mention it anymore. I don't even know why I have it. I just take it down.
right. Wow, but yeah.
But yeah.
So thank you for coming on. Much appreciated. Good luck with training, and I'll see you in Lithuania. And for
Yeah.
everybody listening, as per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings, post it up in your stories, tag us. And until next time, six pack Lapadatt, six up. And we are out.